Hey, Diana, did you know getting a one-star review isn't really all that bad?
Mark, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said.
Ladies and gentlemen, jurists and just curious, welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast. Here you'll learn about marketing, management, and life skills for lawyers that probably won't get you disbarred. Hosted by Marc Whitehead, a seasoned lawyer who remembers when fax machines were cutting edge, and Diana Berry, attorney, COO, and the brains behind the scenes. Together, they are the legal world's most dynamic duo since statutes met regulations. So if you're looking to build a practice, not a prison, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful Barrister, where legal legends are made.
And welcome to the Successful Barrister podcast, the podcast for lawyers and law firm leaders about marketing, management, and life skills that probably won't get you disbarred. I am your host, Marc Whitehead, alongside my number one, my COO, Diana Berry. Hey, Diana, how you doing?
I'm good, Mark. I still light up when I hear that. I don't think I'd ever seen that before because we're still doing this whole,
We're
I
still
don't
doing
know.
the remote thing, but I was down in Diana's office right before we got on and realized that yes, Diana again was primping her hair and doing her makeup, and you got real offended when I started to take a picture of you doing your makeup, but it's okay.
Some things we just don't need proof of,
It's
Mark.
okay. It's
So,
already on Facebook, so it's too late. Once it's
well,
out, it's out.
like our Google reviews, which is what we're speaking of today. It's once it's out, you can't
Once it's out,
unsell,
it's out.
or can you? I guess that's what we're talking about today. Are they always there?
Well, that's a good question, and we're going to get to that. So, today we are talking about the power of reviews for your law firm. Now, reviews come in a lot of forms, but I think the 800-pound gorilla of the review world, obviously, are Google reviews. I am proud to say that we have over 1,000 five-star Google reviews for our firm. Now they are spread across 11 different locations, so no one particular location has 1,000. But somebody asked me about that the other day. How can you say you have 1,000? Add them up, dude. Add them up. Um, but why are reviews important?
Mark, actually, I'm glad you asked because I was doing some research and, I love my statistics and, whatever statistics mean in this AI world. But, did you know that studies show that a 1-star increase in your average rating can increase your revenue by 5 to 13%?
5 to 13%. So if I went from a 3-star to a 4-star, which
You
God
can
help me,
You
yes.
can absolutely expect to see an increase in your revenue. But also, 92% of customers read online reviews before choosing a service provider. And I think that makes a lot of sense. Everything from which dealership you're going to go to get your car serviced or even a car mechanic, much less a law firm. So I think that it's very important in the world that we live in to make sure that your negative reviews are handled appropriately, but also that you're maybe counteracting your negative reviews with sufficient positive
Right.
reviews.
And I know this has driven Diana crazy that, we get some 1-star and 2-star reviews from time to time. And Diana looks at him like, that's just so unfair. That's so BS.
Mm.
And it puts you in a foul mood. And I get it. I get it. Um, but it's not the end of the world. There are
Yep.
sometimes, or quite frankly, sometimes we deserve them. I mean, sometimes we do drop the ball. I mean, it's usually always around client communication. Nobody called me back. I've been waiting for a phone call for 2 or 3 days, and that should not happen. But sometimes it does for various reasons. Um, so but we also get a ton of 5-star reviews from raving fans. So we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, how to get those 5-star reviews, how to minimize those 1-star reviews that are inevitably going to show up if you do any sort of volume work like we do, and what to do about it. Because, word of mouth has gone digital. Your reviews are your digital word of mouth signature. It's just basically what it is. It's how the way modern referrals work.
Yeah, and it's surprising that even I consider myself a fairly rational human being, but I'll trust some random person on and their comment on a service provider online because it's what we have now, and I think that a lot of the review, I guess I don't know, the Googles of the world, Yelp, all of them have done a lot to go to combat the bots, and so the legitimacy of the ratings has also increased, and so I think that it's allows us to make decisions as
Yeah.
consumers.
Right. I mean, I think overall, having a ranking system out there of some form or fashion is good for the general public. It's good for the consumer. I understand sometimes we don't think it's fair to us. Um, but, in the long run, I do think it's a workable system that we can live in. And I do think it provides some information to clients. Because think about what do clients know about us before they call us? They know almost nothing. We all say the same things on our website. We all, are saying, we're tough, we're aggressive, whatever. We're all using the same buzzwords because we're probably all using the same SEO vendor and the same people running our websites.
Yep.
So it's hard for the consumer out there to distinguish between, what's a good lawyer, what's a bad lawyer or firm for that matter. Um, and quite frankly, you can have great lawyers that still deliver, bad customer service. They may get a great result for a client, but if their staff is short or rude or doesn't seem to be paying attention, that kind of stuff can happen. Um, and vice versa. I'd assume there's probably some lawyers out there that might get mediocre results, but their clients love them because they gave them great service. They paid attention to them. There's the old saying out there. I think it was Maya Angelou who said to, and I'm sure somebody will Google this and tell me I'm wrong, but I think she said people don't remember what you do; they remember how you make them feel.
Hmm. Or remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. Yeah.
Right. And I truly believe that. I still remember the people who pissed me off and made me feel like crap back in law school. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about when we get in the meat of it in the next segment. We're going to talk a little bit about how we deal with good reviews, how we deal with bad reviews, what you should make of them, what you can do about them, and quite frankly, the reality check that getting a bad review should trigger in you. You should take it seriously. I mean, maybe there is something broken in your system that you need to deal with. So I find it funny though. Here's what I've noticed: people love our staff. People are
Hmm.
constantly saying great things about our staff, which I'm very proud of. Um, but when they get mad, they usually get mad at the attorney. You know, um, And I find that sort of an interesting dynamic, and I'm not really sure exactly why that is. Um, I'd be interested to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I've seen it in both ways, though. I've definitely. I remember um, a little too well some of the one stars against some of our staff that I feel were very unjustified. When I go to Mark and I say this is unfair, it's his favorite comment of mine because I think everything should be fair. So I actually think that there's a lot of that they do mention our staff by name, unfortunately. So I'm not sure why do you think, Mark, that the attorneys get picked on?
So I think the attorneys are held to a higher standard than the
Mm,
staff, quite frankly. And that's not that actually that's I think that's correct. The
that's
attorneys should
expected.
we are the professionals. We're the ones who, are supposed to be the smart ones. We're the ones bringing in the big bucks. We're supposed to be, that knight in shining armor for the client. And when we fail on that, or there's a perception that we have failed on that, usually in, how we made the client feel, um, they're more willing to sling that arrow. Whereas, your staff, I think your clients relate to your staff. I mean, they're sort of on the same, socioeconomic level. They view them as their peers. They actually view them a lot of times as their friends and their confidants. Um, so I think they are a little bit more lenient with the staff than they are with the attorneys, and quite frankly, I think rightfully so. I think we should be held to a higher standard. But anyway, when we come back from our break, we're going to do a deep dive and a practical discussion on ways that we deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to reviews.
This podcast is sponsored by Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability benefits law firm. Marc Whitehead runs a firm of over 60 dedicated people whose mission is to make a difference in the lives of our injured and disabled clients. Marc represents disabled claimants in Social Security disability, private disability insurance, and veterans disability claims in all 50 states. Marc Whitehead is double board certified in both Social Security disability law and personal injury trial law. Marc has litigated disability cases in over 40 states and counting and can help your clients too. Stop throwing your phone calls away. Call Marc Whitehead at 701-VIP-LEAD. That's 701-VIP-LEAD. Or visit our website at disabilitydenials.com. Referral fees are paid in all jurisdictions where it is permitted. Refer us your disability cases today and know that your clients will be in good hands.
And we're back. All right, Diana, what do you got to say now?
Mark was right.
Why was Mark right?
My Angela quote is, people will forget what you said. Will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. It's a very good quote, Mark.
Okay. See, I nailed it.
Absolutely.
So, how you make them feel. This is all about how you make your clients feel. Now, what do clients want when they come to feel? And obviously, they want you to solve their problem, whatever you've been hired to do. But they also want to be seen. They also want to be heard. They want to feel like they're important. They want to feel like they're not just a number to your firm. They want to feel like real human beings. And I think this is the connection that I try to preach to my people. You know, people come to us at their worst moment. Nobody comes to us because something good happened to them. They come to us because they're sick, they're injured, they're disabled, and they're not always in the best state of mind. They're not always in the best mood. They're frequently in pain. They're frequently having financial difficulty. You know, their lives are not good right now, and we've been hired to fix it. But along with our job of fixing it is that we also need to reassure them. We need to give them confidence. To some extent, we need to be, you know, both their lawyer and their therapist. You know, our license says attorney and counselor at law. You know, it's not just the attorney part, it's also the counseling part. And a lot of the counseling part has to deal with dealing with their feelings, their emotions, their fears. And I think that's something that, you know, we as attorneys sometimes tend to forget. Like, look at the great result I got. Well, great. But did you go the extra mile to make your client feel good about it? So I guess I'm going to get off my soapbox, but that's just kind of how, you know, every time I see a negative review, I try to look at it from the client's perspective. What could we have done better? But we're going to get into a deep dive here real quick about, all right, so you get the Google review that you think is unfair. Or here's the one we get. We get one that you simply can't identify who sent it. We got one the other day. It simply said a 1-star review that had the word trash and no identifying information, no way that we could, you know, figure out if that was a real client or not. Was that just some troll out there? Was that some competitor out there? No way to know what was going on. You know, that would be a classic example of an unfair review. Diana, what do we do about that?
Well, so we have a process, which we'll talk a lot about. I mean, the process for the negative reviews, it's kind of been developed over time. It's definitely a playbook. But one of the things I think you definitely you don't do is respond right away. I think that used to be kind of the immediate response was, okay, respond to Google reviews immediately. But now I think common wisdom is that you don't respond to negative reviews immediately, because it gives a bit, I guess, bit of legitimacy to that review. And I think that one of the things that I've learned recently is that if a review, whether from a real client or a perceived client or a competitor, as you mentioned, not that anybody we know would do that, Mark. They if they mention a specific name, if they say, "Hey, case manager XYZ was horrible," then you can actually report that to Google and get it flagged as bullying, which I think is one of the best, cleanest ways to get a 1-star review removed is to report it to Google.
Right. So there's a technical reason and an emotional reason why you don't immediately respond. The emotional reason is that exactly that. You're going to let your emotions get control of you, and you're probably going to say something wrong or stupid, and you may get into, and they will see that answer and they can respond to that. And then the next thing you know, you have this long string of back and forth. You don't want to do that. That is not how you deal with it. The technical reason for it is that if you do feel that you have grounds to have it removed, there is a process that you have to go through with Google, and you have to give them some time. And if you respond to the review while you're going through this review process, that is a signal to Google that the review is actually legitimate, and it makes it less likely that Google would pull it down. So that's the technical reason why you don't immediately respond. So our process, first off, if we determine that it is an actual client that we can identify, we have a process, an escalation process. Why don't you tell us about that?
So the marketing sends out the review, screenshot of the review to the appropriate team members, and the team members are asked to look into our case management software, which is Litify, which does a great job of what we call an activity timeline. It'll tell us exactly what happened, and they have to let the department heads know. Depending on the size of the department, but more often than not, we do ask that the attorney call the client and just, determine what went wrong, what happened. And then you can, if appropriate, ask if we can take the review down, but if they'll be willing to take the review down.
If they
But
can take the review down. We can't take
sorry,
the review down. But
if they can take the review
the
down,
client, the
correct.
upset client.
Yep, the poster, the
Yeah,
negative review person.
gotcha.
If they'll take the negative review down, and but it's really just client contact. You're trying to repair the relationship, even if they won't take the review down, which we've had clients mid representation, and the attorney will say, no, I want to keep the client. And I'm like, okay. And so they'll try to repair that. And the client will say, yes, I'll take the review down later, assuming our relationship continues to go well. And I think that that's a business decision that each department head has to make.
Right.
But we do follow that step by step. I called it a playbook earlier, but it is our playbook that we try to follow every single time that
Right.
we get a negative review.
Right. So step one is to address the concern and to see if you can, gently convince them to take it down. It may just be a cry for help. Maybe they hadn't, again, I mean, it shouldn't happen, but there are times when, phone calls go unreturned, and the only thing the client thinks they can do is put up a negative review. And guess what? It worked. They got an immediate return phone call. Okay, so we have had plenty of success, smoothing the relationship over, getting the client to pull the review down, which can certainly happen. So the next step is if we can't get the client to pull the review down, or if we can't identify who the client is, which happens fairly frequently, there is a process with Google that you can dispute the review and ask Google to take it down. Some of the, you mentioned bullying. If they mention somebody by name, such as a staff member, and go on off-topic rants or cursing or something like that, there are grounds that Google will take it down for bullying, for cyberbullying. That is one way. They make offensive or derogatory comments, especially when they name a staff or name the attorney. You can do that. Or if you can convince Google it's spam or a fake review. And I don't know where these bots come through that put the fake reviews up, but they're out there. So there is a process for this, but it does take a period of time and you have to wait. So what's going to happen is you have this negative review hanging out there that's going to be sitting out there for 3, 4, 5 days until you get some feedback from Google about whether they're going to take it down or not. And that during this time, again, for the technical reason we described above, you're not responding. You have to kind of let it slide. Now, one good thing is whoever's on the other end of that negative review probably is cooling down or forgetting about it or moving on with their life. Because the last thing, again, you want to do is to get in a back and forth on a review site. So let's assume that we've done all of this, that we've tried to get the client to take it down. They wouldn't take it down. We've tried to get Google to take it down. They won't take it down. What do we do next?
Well, then you have to, I mean, I do think at some point you should craft a response and what that looks like. Mark, I don't know. I'm sure you have some best practices there.
Well, the number one, remember, the response is not written for the benefit of the person who gave you the negative review. The response is written for the rest of the world, the next client that comes along, the next potential client who may be scrolling through the reviews. Because how you respond, quite frankly, is a marketing message. That is a marketing message. How do you respond to these things? So, so you want to be, your tone should start off with, quite frankly, some empathetic response. We're so sorry that we did not meet your standards. We hold ourselves to a very high standard. Please call us at whatever number so we can discuss and see how we can fix the problem. Something along those lines. You don't want to be defensive. This is assuming it's a legitimate client that you can identify. Something along the lines of, we appreciate the feedback. We'll try to do better in the future. Something along those lines. But it always come with a call to action at the end. Please call our office so we can see what we can do to make this right. So this is kind of the best face that you can put on it to the outside world, the people that are out there coming along looking, at your reviews. But of course, the best thing you can do, obviously, is to bury that negative review with a bunch of positive reviews. I mean, that's the reason you need to have an aggressive review program. And we do that. I have a story to tell you. You want to hear my story?
Absolutely.
Okay. I may have mentioned this on the podcast before, but we know people don't go back and listen to the back episodes anyway. So I bought one of these beds from a local famous bed store here in Houston run by Mattress Mac. And it was, with these dual adjustable beds where you can lift you can lift the head and so forth. Well, I remember it was an early Sunday morning and somehow the head had gotten lifted all the way up and it was like a big U, the whole bed. The bed, there's no way you could sleep in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
One of these little electronic things. And it broke and it was stuck and it wouldn't move. So I called Mattress Mac's firm, Gallery Furniture. We'll give Gallery Furniture a plug. And within 5 minutes on a Sunday morning, early Sunday, like 6 a.m. in the morning, somebody called me back and he walked me through the process. He's like, here's how you reprogram it. There's a code you've got to put in, blah, blah, blah. This is what you get when you buy way too fancy of a bed. But he fixed it, and he fixed it within 5 minutes, just me over the phone. He didn't have to send out a service person, nothing. He just walked me through the process. And at the end of that conversation, he goes, is everything good? Can I help you anymore? And I go, no, it's perfect. You've been great. And he goes, if you could do me this favor, if you could help me further my career at Gallery Furniture by going to this link that he texted me and giving me a 5-star review and mention me by name, it would greatly improve my career here at Gallery Furniture. He was very explicit about it. Please mention me by name. It will help my career here at Gallery Furniture. And I'm like, hell yeah. Of course I'll do that. You did me a solid. I mean, you called me back. You fixed the problem. You were very nice. You were very helpful. I love you. You're a great guy. And after we got off the phone, it struck me. He was trained to do that. He was reading from a script. And I'm like, this is freaking brilliant. Why can't we at our law firm do the same thing? So we have instituted that policy here at our law firm is that, and here's the thing, it's our staff that are really trained to do this. Our intake staff does it at the end of their engagement. We train our case managers to do it. Anybody in the firm that has any client contact, we train them on how to do this. And the script is simple, and this is after a positive engagement with the client and whatever and it could be at the beginning of or the middle or the end of the representation. But if you wouldn't mind doing me a favor, if you could go to this link that I'm about to send you and leave a positive review mentioning me by name and have them spell your name out, it would really help my career at Marc Whitehead and Associates. Very simple ask. And it works like gangbusters. It works. Now we bonus our staff based on this, the number of call outs you get. So it's, we used to get 2 to 3 to 4 reviews a month. We now get somewhat, how many reviews do we get now a month? I've lost track, but it's a ton.
Yep, I've lost track as well.
I think, all right, I'm going to go look at the numbers real quick. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 reviews a month is what we
45 to 55.
You think it's more like 45 to 55? And it
Yep.
depends on the month. It varies a little bit, but we get 40, let's be conservative, 40 to 50 reviews a month. Practically all of them positive by instituting this policy. So even when we get that occasional negative review that we can't get taken down for whatever reason, it really doesn't hurt us that much because it gets buried in all the positive reviews that we get. And, we can kind of direct them where we want the reviews to go by the link that we send them. If we need more reviews in the San Antonio office, we can say this week we're giving out the link to San Antonio. Next week, if we need reviews in the Austin office. So you can direct them to which location you want them to give reviews to.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mark, that, I think one of the best things that you do for this firm is incentivizing our team to solicit Google reviews. And I think it works for both ways because obviously you're giving them a financial incentive, but it really does just bring a human element to the review, right? It's not just Marc Whitehead Associates is a great law firm. It's that, Monique is a great, she really helped me. She really, was able to talk me through the process. And I'm just really grateful that I hired Marc Whitehead and Associates. Is just a much different review. And actually, the firm gets really competitive. We talk about our Google reviews during the our all staff or our monthly all hands meeting. And Mark talks about, who got the most reviews, and people get really competitive, which is it's nice to see that on the team. And on the PILMA listserv, we see that this is a common incentive for other law firms to be able to incentivize. And the dollar amount varies by your practice area, geography, size of the firm, obviously, on what you're able to contribute. So if you want to talk to Mark about that, please do, because we do have some data on that just based on being on the PILMA listserv. But just it's a great thing to be able to do if you're financially able to do so for your firm. And so, Mark, I think that what I was surprised to learn when doing my research for this podcast was that Google reviews actually tie to, or they're important for LSAs, but then that's also tied to the GBP somehow.
Right. So local service ads are basically a version of pay-per-click, although it's pay-per-lead. But to even get registered as a certified or verified user, they keep changing the term, but to be able to run local service ads, which are the ads that show up at the top of search results, they're slightly different from pay-per-click. Pay-per-click does not have this requirement, but for local service ads, you have to have at least 5 Google reviews to even start a campaign. I think it's five. Is it 5 5-star or just 5 reviews? Period. I'm going to assume it's 5 5-star reviews.
That would make sense.
That would make sense, but you have to have something along those lines just to even activate your campaign. And that's per location. So in other words, for each of our 11 locations, we have to have at least 5 reviews to even start an LSA campaign. But then it goes back to what's even more important. So you think about this. When you do a search, let's say you search Houston disability lawyer, that's the search that is our gold standard. Assume we show up in the 3-pack, the 3 organic results, what's called the map pack, where they give you the map to the location and all this fun stuff. That's the goal. That's where you really want to be. If you're in the 3-pack, that means, you've done something right, in your SEO efforts. However, now you're being compared to 2 other firms. Well, how do you compare to them, with their reviews? Because that's right there, displayed big and bold, right to the left of the display. So if I've got a 4.9 rating, which I think we do, and the other guy has a 3.9 or a 4.0 or 4.1, I'm going to stand out. That's a way that I am standing out in a positive way to differentiate myself, in an otherwise cold, hard SEO environment, is because my Google review rating is higher. Also shows the raw numbers. If I have 700 and something reviews and this other guy down the street has 3 reviews, what does that say about me versus what does that say about him? Of course, vice versa. If my Google rating slips, if I'm running at a 4.6 and my competitor is running at a 4.8, but I've got 700 reviews and he's only got 50 reviews, well, there's a give and take there. I'm not sure how that would be interpreted by the general public. Obviously I want to be number one in both sides. I want to have a higher, review average. I want to be the one with the 4.9 or the 5.0, and I want to be the one that has the most in terms of raw numbers, because both of those things are influential in, when a consumer makes a decision about which ad to click on. So it's important when you're looking at the Google 3-pack, the local search, the Houston disability lawyer, you got to have both working at the same time. If you're doing the LSA strategy, you want to have a good 5-star ranking in the LSAs. You want to have a good 5-star ranking in the Google My Business profile, because these are the things that really matter in local search. And again, local search is kind of defined a little differently from regular Google search. And I'm like, that's beyond the scope of this podcast and beyond the scope of my tired brain. But I do know there is a difference in it. And for most firms are fairly local. So I think it's the local ranking, it's the local LSAs that really are going to move the needle for most people. Want to turn our attention a little bit to how do we leverage our positive reviews? We can leverage them beyond simply the fact that, it looks good in the LSAs, it looks good in the Google My Business profile. There's other ways that you can leverage your 5-star reviews. How are we going to do that, Diana?
Oh, Mark, I'm sure you have a lot of ways that you do it. 2 of my favorite that you do are the social media posts. So obviously I follow the firm on social media, and I like to see how you've exerted them sometimes as a post on Instagram or whatever, the Facebook. It's nice to see, and it's a nice reminder of why we do what we do. And so obviously you can put them in social media posts, make them graphics and those types of things. But the other thing that I think you do a really great job of course, I think about the team a lot. We do excerpts of 5-star reviews in our all staff, again, our all hands meeting, our monthly all hands meeting. And we like to recognize the team from beginning to end. So for example, if we had a positive outcome for a client, then we also mention the intake specialist that brought on the client, because it does take a team effort to make that all happen for everybody. And so it's obviously good feels for everybody to see what our clients are saying about us, because in a volume business, as I'm sure some of our listeners have. It's just helpful to help people remember why they do what they do, but also to see how the rest of the firm is succeeding.
Right. So it's kind of goes back to, when you um, talking about using them internally at our all staff meetings. You praise in public and you criticize in private. So, when we do get negative reviews, they are elevated. The person who's responsible for the negative review or the client, we deal with them directly, but we don't make it a big public show because we don't want to shame people. But when we get positive reviews, we absolutely blow that out at staff meetings, because it's a big feel good, rah rah moment. Because we always lead off our staff meeting. What is our purpose? To improve the lives of our clients. What are our core values? Why are we here? To help people. So to get that positive feedback from our clients that we can share to the staff, really elevates and motivates our people to continue to do good work, because they do. By and large, we do extremely good, positive work. And it's just a good feel good moment, within the firm. Um, and we publish the numbers as well. And it's funny. So we have one person, and believe it or not, an intake specialist, somebody at the beginning of the pipeline who consistently gets the most call
Mhm.
outs and reviews. Um, and I kind of want to emphasize that point, because a lot of people think you have to wait until the representation is over before you can ask for a review. And Dee has proven that is totally incorrect. She's right at the beginning of the representation, at the point where she brings the client in, and she's the one getting the most positive reviews. And she phrases it very specifically. This is the end of my involvement in the case. I'm passing you off to operations to work up your case. But this will be the last time I get to talk to you. But if I've done a good job for you, and if I've been helpful to you, if you could, do me a favor and leave a review, mention me by name, going through the whole script. She's very good about it. And people love her. And quite frankly, they're in a good mood at that moment, because they've all of a sudden taken care of a problem. Their problem was, I needed to hire a lawyer. I didn't know which one to do. I didn't know how to do it. And Dee took them through that process. And so now they have a lawyer. Now they have hope. So they're feeling good in that moment. So I would say, do not overlook getting positive reviews at the beginning of the process. You don't have to wait to the very end. Now, I like to make sure that we have the most current positive reviews on our website, on page one of our website, because once people get to our website a lot of different ways, they get through PPC, through organic search. They could just come in directly. They could have seen it a million different ways. But if you can get your best and most positive reviews, and hopefully the latest review, so it stays fresh and current on page, on the front page of your website, it gives you social proof. It gives you some credibility. It gives something, for people to find interesting and make your website sticky, something that they want to stay and read. So I really like when we feature our reviews on the website. You already mentioned social media. You can use them in your printed newsletters. We've used them there before. So if you have something really nice, especially if somebody says something, eloquently and takes the time to really write something extensive, these are great things to publish, in your newsletter.
Yeah, and I think the final way that you use that I've seen is obviously in your marketing material. Anything that you want to put in for your intake packets or any of our client brochures that we have, our client handbook, that obviously makes sense. And we don't do as many video testimonials, but I've seen a lot of really great PI firms leverage a spoken or a written testimonial and make it
Right.
a video.
Or just a general statement. I mean, we've put it on marketing materials before, over 1,000 5-star reviews, just the simple, the summation of the reviews, um, you know, whatever it is in your market, over 100 5-star reviews, over 500 star, whatever your number is, if it's something impressive, you can just spout out the total, and use that as part of a headline in your marketing materials. Um, so how are we proactive about this, Diana? What do we do to be proactive?
Well, I mean, I've said playbook like 3 times already today, but I think that, it obviously takes someone internally that's completely dedicated to your reputation management. That means someone who's constantly monitoring not only your 5-star reviews, but your 1-star reviews, and then making sure that the 1-star reviews are actioned appropriately, whether that's through Google or internally. And so I think that one of the things that you've done a very good job of, Mark, is just making sure we have a dedicated person that actually whose job it is to own your reputation, your digital reputation.
Yeah. So in our office, our marketing manager actively monitors this on all 11 of our locations. I'm sure she has some electronic whiz bang thing that gives her, alerts. I don't know how it works, but the magic fairies out there somehow make this happen. But the main thing is we include it as a regular weekly stat in our regular weekly level 10 scorecard. So when we have uh, our leadership meeting on Tuesday of every week, we go through our scorecard. And one of the scorecard items is how many positive reviews did we get? How many negative reviews, if any, did we get that week? So we literally look at it every single week. And if we get anything negative, we start breaking it down right there. The whole leadership team gets to look at it. It's also discussed in our marketing meetings. So it's something that we look at literally every single week, and we deal with in real time, every single one. So when we get back from our break, we are going to go over, we're changing this a little bit. It's Marc and Diana's 5 action steps going forward. So what I figured out is that I need Diana's input on this. And so we're changing the title to Marc and Diana's 5 action steps going forward. And we're going to cover those when we get back.
This is Marc Whitehead, lawyer, entrepreneur, and business coach. Thanks for listening to the Successful Barrister podcast. If we've stirred your juices, hit me up with an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Remember, Marc is spelled with a C. And get on the Successful Barrister newsletter mailing list. Even better, let's set up a call. I'd love to talk to you about working together, talk shop, or just shooting the breeze.
And we're back. All right, Diana, 5 action steps going forward. Give me your best action step.
So we talked a lot about negative reviews. I do think that that was the impetus for this podcast because we struggle. I struggled. We'd received a couple of 1-star reviews in a row, and we had actually won both clients' case. And so
That's what really irritated you. We won both of those cases.
And what's more, our team had done a great job in representing and communicating, and so it was a tough one. And so we wanted to share with you guys what I learned, which is one. Obviously, they had mentioned our case managers by name by name in the review, and so we were able to talk to Google and just see about getting that taken down first. So that was step one. But also after that, we did look into it. I mean, it's not an either or; it's a both and. We were able to report it to Google, but at the same time, we also looked. And this isn't something that I delegate down to anyone, not to an intern, to anyone. I look in the activity timeline or the CRM, whatever you have, myself. And I look to make sure not only did we work the file, but did we communicate the work that we did on the file to the client? I think that that's one of the most frustrating things that I've learned is that we have done so much work on this for the client and great work. And unfortunately, sometimes we just forget to communicate that to the client.
Okay. So my tip is remember to respond to the world, not the reviewer. It should be professional, relatively short. So something along the lines of, here's one that we put out just the other day. Thank you for taking your time, for sharing your experience. We take your feedback seriously, and we're reviewing our communications process to ensure quicker follow-up in the future. We are so happy, and this is where we put the nugget in. We're so happy that we were successful in your case. We did add that nugget. Please reach out to me directly. Left my phone number so we can make sure that we make this right. So that's exactly what we said. Number one, we thank them. We said we take it seriously. We're reviewing our processes. Did slip in the nugget that, oh yeah, and we won your case. And please call me directly so I can see what I can do to make it right. Okay. This is how you respond. You don't respond tit for tat. You're an idiot. We did right. You're wrong. Blah, blah, blah. You don't, it doesn't do any good. You just be sympathetic, empathetic, spin it in such a way that makes you look good.
And so I think my tip number 3 was Mark makes that look so easy. But guys, there are resources out there. One of the things that I think is a good thing, look at how your competition is doing it. Look at how your competition is responding to reviews. And not only just how many reviews do they have, especially if you have, we are very lucky in our neighborhood to not have many disability competitors. But for those in the PI world or even the estate planning world, see how your competition's doing in terms of responding to negative reviews. Maybe kind of clone that, and if nothing else, use AI to draft an empathetic, professional response.
All right. So my number 3 is investigate your negative reviews. There could be some grains of truth in here. There could be some things, that you should be doing to improve, your processes. Maybe they're doing you a favor by letting you know. Now, we had this conversation earlier today. We actually use net promoter scores, which is another way for clients to rate you on a scale. Is it 1 to 10 or 1 to 5?
1 to 10.
So, but we do that through the case status system. And so it allows our clients to rate us basically at any time during the representation. And sometimes that makes our people a little squeamish, but as I was explaining to them today, that's a good thing. It allows them an avenue to give negative feedback that's private, that only we can see. And therefore we can deal with it. If somebody gets a 5 out of a 10, on a net promoter score, then we need to look at that and see what's going on. Maybe there is some legitimacy to the complaint, or maybe it just tells us that this client is going to take a little extra hand holding more than normal. But it's not a bad thing to get a low net promoter score. It actually tells you something. It's sort of the canary in the coal mine. And it's certainly better than, getting a negative review that's public that may stick there forever.
And I think that was number 4, Mark. But
Was
yes,
that
I agree.
Did I miss?
That was number 4. So I'm going to just go ahead and round out my number 5. And that was obviously the LSA stuff that we talked about today and how that relates to your Google business profile. And even if you don't have an LSA strategy, one of the cool tips that I learned when I was at AAJ was that they're asking the clients to now add geography and profession into the review. So how, Mark, you talked about how you can say, hey, my person XYZ, case manager XYZ was really helpful. Now it's, hey, I'm a doctor out of Indianapolis, and case manager XYZ was really helpful. And because now the AI bots and all of the things that are happening digitally that pick up on it and make it a lot stronger review.
Yeah, this is something that we have not yet instituted here at the office. But, if a client could identify, where they come from somehow in the review, and I don't know, I find this kind of difficult to figure out how to systematize this without being a little overly aggressive, a little overly pushy. But I'm going to think about it. But that was an interesting concept of somehow getting the geography in.
Especially since you have a national practice, I think that it really makes sense. But I even thought about our estate planning firms who opened an office. One of our friends out of Michigan, and they opened up an office in a new suburb, if you will, to try to grab that clientele. If they were able to say that I live in this particular city, then it would absolutely show legitimacy, as well as I just think that it would help their clientele build their new location.
Okay. So in recap here, say we're going through a therapy session to help out Diana because she's still having, I think, PTSD from the negative reviews that came in last week. That We actually won. We actually went the extra mile. We won them benefits, and we still got the negative review. And I could just see it when I walked in the office and I saw Diana, like, something is wrong. Something is under, some burr got under her saddle. She just was
Well,
not happy.
I think that if I were in charge and not our marketing manager, if I were in charge of our negative, a response to our negative reviews, Wendy's social media strategy, Mark?
No, I do not know
No,
that.
it's a little snarky, a little bit. You'd really like it now that I think about it. A little bit sarcastic, a little bit tongue in cheek. Um, like it's really that would be.
Yeah, I know. It would
It's a
make you
good thing I'm
feel
not in charge.
good. It would
Yeah.
make you feel good, but would it serve the greater good?
It's
That's the
working
thing.
for Wendy's, but I understand that this is not necessarily the same
Yeah.
clientele. So yes, it is a good thing that I am not in charge of your
Yes,
marketing
this is the
project.
reason that you have limits, and we keep you away from the sharp objects. So there. All right. With that, I think we're out of time. We got to get moving. So if anybody wants to discuss this more, anybody wants to get on our mailing list, we put the Successful Barrister newsletter out 6 times a year. You want to get on the mailing list, send me an email at marc@marcwhitehead.com. Marc is spelled with a C. Otherwise, please make sure to go and give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to follow our YouTube channel, and visit our website at www.successfulbarrister.com, and make sure that you visit our sponsor, Marc Whitehead Associates, a national disability law firm, at disabilitydenials.com. And with that, we're out of here.
Bye.